Welcome to All Things AI. My name is Ishan, and in the fourth episode, we have Miss Amber Ivey, the author of AI Meets AI. Welcome to the channel, and it's an honor to have you here today.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for the conversation.
So I'll just start off by asking, how's your day going so far?
So far, so good. It's been busy. I actually just came out of last week pitching one of the companies I co-founded, Sense Tech. So I'm like off a high of that, like pitching in front of investors and things like that. That company also focused on AI, particularly in healthcare. So it's been great and just learning about how this stuff goes, but I have energy coming out of that. So super excited to be here.
Thank you. And I guess the first area I want to talk about is just everything that went into authoring the book. So
Oh
I
yeah.
think the idea behind the book was basically to educate children, right, about how AI is going to progress. And I think the main thing is because AI is so centered around adults and exactly how we can optimize like work, for example, that almost for children who aren't as literate in areas like technology, they might be getting lost and then not knowing how to properly use these tools. So I think that writing a book, especially towards children, is going to be really helpful. And I guess with that being said, my first question is, did you have any prior experience with writing in general prior to AI Meets AI?
So not with book writing. I've written plenty of reports, plenty of case studies, plenty of conversations around things related to data, which fuels AI. So I've always written about those topics because that's my background, but never in a book format. A report was probably the biggest thing I've done that looks anything like that.
And I think that might have, in a way, signaled a drastic change, right? Because you went from writing to like
Yes.
something professional to then for children, which is so. Was there any challenge in that process that you especially
Oh
encountered?
yeah. Still encountering. So I learned a lot. So I self-published, but the book did pretty well, and I got a lot of different media on it, which was great. Still bestseller in my category on Amazon even today. And the book was published back in June. So I'm excited about that. But it was challenging because kids understand things very differently and they need information in a different way. So, like writing it in a way that one, parents who want to read to a kid or a kid will want to read themselves, especially the age group I chose, was very important to me. So the funny thing was, some of the parents, particularly my male parents, were like, "This is a long book." Female parents are a little bit more willing to read a little bit longer, but it was really meant for kids who were exploring for themselves, less of a read for a parent to sit there and read. Because I know for parents, they really want something that's quick, short
Yeah,
words,
like
so
a
they can
bedtime
like to sleep. They want
story.
to move on, right? But I really wanted this to be a book for kids. So kids, I know I actually got a lot of testimonials through videos that people were either posting online or sending to me via Instagram. They were like, kids loved it. Those who were actually reading it, as well as those who were hearing it from their parents, they were making it their favorite book. So I made sure I had like alliterations in it, talking about different things. I also based the book in Baltimore. So I was trying to do things where kids could relate to it because it's very different to write a children's book, especially as a first book, than any other book. The reports could have related to writing an adult novel of some sort that's for adults, but going from reports to actually writing for kids, there was a big learning curve, and I had to really like look to see what was out there, join a lot of Facebook groups to really learn how to do that in an effective way, as well as have a lot of people read it to give me feedback.
And so I guess how long did the whole process take from start to finish?
So it took me it wasn't that long. So it took about 6 months because originally I wasn't even thinking about doing it until earlier this year. We had ChatGPT came out. So one thing you may not know, because I don't have it on my profile, is that my voice is trained on or I use my voice to train an AI for a group called Create Labs. So my voice is actually one of the official voices of the first AI woman of color that exists out there. So if you listen to her, one of the voices, I'm one of her official voices. So she was basically her technology, the underlying technology was GPT-3, not the chat piece because that hadn't come out. GPT-3 and other models have been out for a few years. So I had already been interacting with the technology vis-a-vis this AI tool that was using it to like go out and answer questions for people, do meetings and things like that. And I actually came in contact with it in 2019 or 20 via a an app called Clubhouse. So that's how I met the founder who was using OpenAI's technology at the time. So I had been interacting with the technology for what, almost 3 years now, right? In a way that's a little bit different. So when it came out earlier this year, everyone was like, oh my God, what is this? And you see schools banning it. You see people like trying to remove it from use in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, hold on, like chill out. It's been around for a while. It's been in a research format. People can now use it. Like we should not ban this thing. And then I realized that we as adults, we get a little bit stuck in our ways and we don't want to change. So I'm like, I can't go to adults on this because I do talk to adults via my podcast. But I'm like, let me start with kids who are already using the technology in ways that have like not full AI, but they're using parts of AI, right? Like machine learning and things like that through AI powered assistants that are in their home, like the Alexas, the OK Googles of the world. They're already using that stuff. If they're using apps that already have AI in it, things like Roblox and different tools like that have some remnants of AI in them. So I'm like, they're going to be the biggest users of this. It's already in their world. They're growing up in a world that's going to be fully empowered by AI. Why don't I touch and reach them? So that's why I decided that. And then I had to go through the process of like developing it and what that looked like. And I actually used a prompt through an AI tool called Midjourney, which is a text to image prompt, to basically create the original picture that I used as a inspiration to give to my illustrator. And then we worked on going back and forth of what the character would look like and how that would work.
And I think, I guess, relating back to like GPT-3, I'm pretty sure I saw a few science fair research projects from high school students actually focusing centering
Oh,
around
wow.
that. Yeah, so it's like it seemed, and I actually heard about it too right before, a little while before ChatGPT was launched. So it definitely seems like for those who have been involved in like developing AI, it's not anything new. It's just like, oh, it's been publicized. Let's see like what everybody thinks. And especially children, I guess. So I think that really ties everything together because, especially with how technology is progressing, even though like
Mm-hmm.
adults might know more, it's the children who are literally like, I guess, in a way, on their phones more.
Oh,
In
yeah.
that sense. Yeah. And I can personally relate to such experiences. So it definitely makes sense. But
Yeah, we were talking about like I'm not gonna say my age, but I'm old enough to remember when like AOL went from dial-up to actual like what broadband looked like, right? And what that looked like. And then I'm old enough to know when we went from web 1.0 to web 2.0 and what that looked like, how folks were like, oh my gosh, it's gonna ruin our lives and things like that. And we had the same reaction. Yes, AI has greater influence and could change the way we see the world, and we have to be responsible with it. But to me, it's like just taking all those innovations of the internet and all these other things that we built upon to then take ourselves to the next level and start to use a tool that can take the things that humans do not want to do and automate it in a way so we can do the things we want to do, right? Like the whole point of living here is like self-actualization and being able to be your best self. A lot of the stuff AI can do at its basic level in these large language models, we don't want to do that stuff. Like most of us don't want to write emails. Most of us don't want to create PowerPoint decks. Like I literally joke that I went to college to create PowerPoint decks because that's how much I spend my time like trying to communicate information to others. We don't want to do that. AI can do it today with things like Microsoft Copilot and all these other cool technologies where I can actually focus on the human interaction, helping to change lives in the work that I do. And I think that we have to think about it in a very different way.
sure. And I guess building off the point, talking about like educating children on AI, especially because they're using it in so many different
Oh,
forms,
yeah.
sometimes even without knowing it, I guess. I want to focus or hone in on generative AI specifically, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that it's made like, especially like things like, I guess, PowerPoints on that note, but like in many ways, it makes students and adults' lives so much easier because it can do something for you, but then it's not teaching you. So that's like the dilemma, I guess, that schools are
Mm-hmm.
facing. So, what steps do you think we can specifically take to promote education regarding the proper use of generative AI?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was actually watching either it was a YouTube, a TikTok, an Instagram. I don't know where I found the information, but it was interesting. A teacher, or not a teacher, she's an AI influencer. She was talking about how she encourages folks to use AI, mainly because, even in the classroom, mainly because she's like, some things we've gotten a baseline on an understanding. Now we need to actually push people to be more creative and to be better than they currently are. And we can use AI to do that. For example, if we have someone do a report and they use AI to write it, because at this point, you're not going to know. It's so many ways to like trick the AI against itself to say, hey, AI don't sound like AI. like make sure no one can recognize. I'm being honest, like the prompts, you can prompt it enough where a person cannot tell. So if you know this is going to happen, why not have a person come in honestly using it and saying, okay, as a human, now how are you going to enhance this to make this better? How are you going to take what AI spit out and improve the way we're thinking about this? That's one way. I think we take AI and use it in areas where we already have proficiency. It shouldn't be used in certain grades, right? Like we should use it probably when you're in high school and college levels. And it's funny because me, even in college, like I always laugh because we do a lot of projects where they're like, don't plagiarize, don't work together. And I'm like, never in your life will you ever take a test again outside of college. Like that's not where it happens. Like you actually do have to work with people, and your whole basically eighth grade through college, you're taught to not work with people, to do it on your own, to take the test, to learn all this information when that's not the reality that's out there. So I really want people to think about how we currently built our education system and how we want it to be. These tools can actually help us get there. I did an interview with Dr. Raman Chapala, and you might want to actually reach out to him. He's at Johns Hopkins, and he's actually leading one of the leaders who's going to be leading the AI lab that's now launching there. He's been there doing AI work for some time. But one thing he said when I interviewed him was that he wants one AI teacher for every individual teacher, or excuse me, one AI teacher and one AI teacher, excuse me, per student, and then one actual teacher. What that would allow you to do is actually train or tutor that student how they need to be tutored, how they need to learn. A lot of people do not realize in our education system, we only focus on the middle of the pack. If you're at the head of the class, they're like, you're going to make it anyway. They do not focus on you. You may get skipped up and that's about it. You may go to AP classes, DC classes, DE classes, dual enrollment, dual credit, or what have you, or advanced placement. But other than that, they focus on the middle. The back of the class, you're screwed. So imagine if we put these AI tutors or AI teachers with a student and allowed it to help teach a student, not using what we're using with large language models and the way we use them, but imagine that large language model, which is, I think is what Khan Academy is trying to do. Imagine if that large language model worked with me as an individual, could see where I had deficits in my learning, and could then give me work and give me lessons based on what I needed to have and train me based on that. And then a teacher could check in on the back end and say, hey, Amber's going this far. She's doing well and progressing here. I may need to tweak this or make sure the AI is thinking about these things. That would revolutionize how we do education in this country. But because people are thinking about someone plagiarizing a paper, which is wrong, we should not do that. We got to think about the ways that this can truly change our lives and literally enhance what we cannot do as humans today. There are not enough teachers in the classroom. There's too many kids in the classroom. Too many illiterate kids. Like the number of the high level illiteracy in this country, particularly in cities, is saddening. In some places, 80% in certain groups and across certain public schools. So we need to think about this. And I believe that we can change the way we do that. It has to be responsible, has to be thoughtful. And I believe that we can change education in a way that allows us to continue to get smarter and continue to get more creative. The current education system, let's be honest, has stunted creativity in a lot of ways due to standardized testing. Imagine if we went back to, so honestly, when I was a kid, I was allowed to be creative. I had classes about being creative and I could think differently. By the time I got to like high school, that's when standardized testing started coming in for me. And I started seeing how literally it was making kids only focus on learning something, not learning how it worked, not learning how to do it. And we got to go back to how we learn how to do it, how it works, so kids can make decisions beyond the classroom.
Yeah. And I'll say this, standardized testing has been like a huge pain. It's like preparing for exactly that standard that's set for you. But I guess the other thing is, I definitely think AI is here to stay. It's not like it's just because students are going to be like, our teachers will be like, don't use it. Like everyone's just going to ignore it. And it's like, because obviously that's not what the instinct tells you to do. So I feel like it's definitely going to be here to stay. And I definitely agree that we should do everything we can to use it. And I think the perfect example of this in some schools, and I guess last year on one of our history papers, because it was obvious that someone was going to go and use AI. Like, it's like, oh, it's 11:50 p.m. It's due at midnight. In that case, like, it's like, oh, I'll take the points I can get, whatever happens. But I think one thing that they tried to incorporate was, why don't we use AI? And like you were saying, try and improve on what AI wrote, cite it to see what it gave you and how you used it, because that's really going to show what you're learning from it versus what it, like, I guess, gave you in a way. So
exactly.
I think that's something that we should definitely try and incorporate going on into the future.
I love that. That's a great example and a prime example of how we can use it today to enhance what folks are doing, because particularly in ChatGPT, it doesn't do the right citations. So using it further, or going to Google Bard and trying to figure out what are the best references to use. Like, there's ways for us to do that. I love that your teacher did that.
I guess the next part I want to move into is just general AI talk. And so there's two certain areas that I'm gonna focus on. And first, that's like the hype, I guess, in a way, surrounding AI. And
Mm-hmm.
next is AI governance, which is a personal interest of mine, in fact. But I
Right.
guess first going into the hype surrounding AI, many people now like to say that like the hype around AI is dying down. And there's even been articles published, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn News or I think even some big name news channels were like, oh, we're gonna go back to like data mining and encryption stuff now that AI, ChatGPT's gone. Like, I mean, it's so popular, obviously, but like
Right, right.
what it was, I think it was around November of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that AI definitely has more potential and that it's only going to get more powerful as we go into the future. So, what steps do you think AI developers and even companies like OpenAI can take to promote and publicize AI to a further extent so that even those who aren't like best acquainted with technology still use it?
So the wild thing is, I think there's two worlds here. I think there's a world that's a general population that got really excited about ChatGPT. That world is dying down a bit. There's another world of a lot of people and a lot of developers on the side, including your big companies like NVIDIA, IBM, Microsoft. They are going 1000% ahead. There are also a lot of small companies popping up with their own different models. So the funny thing is, me and one of my friends, we actually do like a This Week in AI some weeks about what's happening. And literally, we normally can't get through the list. Like, we'll have like 20 to 50, depending on list, AI things that came out for that week. They're not mainstream, but they are things that are coming out. NVIDIA is already enhancing their chips to be able to do a lot of this AI work. Everyone's already getting that. Microsoft and IBM did this big deal together where they're going to be working on healthcare, finance, and all this other crazy stuff. I forgot what it's called. It's Ideogram. Ideogram AI came out with a new text to image that actually does text within images better, because Mid Journey cannot do text and images. It's horrible. But there's all these things popping up. Thousands of companies have popped up on the helm of ChatGPT, but others were like, "Oh, ChatGPT is just the beginning. We're going full fledged." So I would encourage people to remember that. I know some things get a lot of attention in the media, but there's a whole world that's still happening. Some things that folks can follow to keep up with this are like Last Week in AI. That's a good newsletter to follow. I talk about it at my YouTube AI Decodes. My friend talks about it as well. Her name is Marcy Newell, Nuelle. She also talks about AI almost every single day, posting about the new things that are coming out. So it's still not mainstream enough for people to even understand what it means. So I would say, yes, generally is dying down, but there's so much stuff happening on the back end. And those big companies are moving it from just you and I using it to corporations using it, to the government using it, to the big players using it. So it's not going anywhere. It may die down on like the one-to-one usage just for now, but it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree with that because obviously, like everyone, when ChatGPT came out, the developers were like, "Oh, we're just getting started," and so obviously, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. And I think Nvidia it has like I'm pretty sure a unique spot in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like manufacturing AI chips. Like they have
Oh
no
yeah.
competition whatsoever. So I want to see, I guess, what type of monopoly they're gonna create in this,
Mm-hmm.
especially going into the future. Not that monopolies are good, but to see what
Right.
Nvidia does because they're in a way like I guess uncontested to a certain extent.
Yeah, in the US, I think Biden put out, I was talking about on this with my Week in AI with my friend. Biden put out an order that basically we can't get the chips or any AI chips from China. Like, he like said, no, you can't do this. So even that has been like pushing American companies and things like that, like literally to limit other companies from getting any AI chips that could come out of China, because they do have a lot of expertise in this area.
And so the next thing I want to transition into is AI governance because as it gets so powerful
Oh
that
yeah.
corporations and I guess even the government itself are going to start using it to a certain extent.
Ooh.
I think like we have to regulate it to some extent so it doesn't get like and then there's discussion about whether it's too early to regulate it or whether we should let it or I guess in a way let it develop and then see like 10 years later and then others are like no now is the time. So I guess, and then it's even, I think in some recent like world leader conventions, they've
Mm-hmm.
brought up AI as a like a major point of concern. So I guess on that note, what steps can we take to bring meaningful legislation in terms of AI governance?
So I am a AI now person. I know I'm very futuristic and all about let's develop this thing, let's build it. I'm also realistic to know that this is about to open a door we cannot close. And I'm a little nervous. We're getting close to the point where we are not going to be able to shut that door. One thing about regulations, so some of my background is like in public policy. One of the things about regulations or governments making laws, often we're so far behind on it that it's way too late. It takes a long time to draft laws, to get people to even think about these topics. I don't know if you were able to watch, and if you haven't, and folks listening to this, if you weren't able to watch Congress basically interviewing the folks on OpenAI and some of the other tech companies who were doing AI, the questions they were asking were questions you would have asked in early 2000. Like they weren't questions that should have been asked at this point in how late in the game. It was literally like, oh, I use it to write an email. Like they were on the very like intro level of what this could be and what it is. I get it because they don't know about the technology, even their staff may not know about it. But I'm concerned that folks are not educated enough in the public sector in order to make good regulations. So I really do think we need to have, and I think the federal government has created like an AI type task force, but we need task force and groups like that that are mix of industry, community, as well as government to come together to create minimal regulations. If China is regulating it, the US needs to be thinking about regulating it. China is a place that has been using AI for some time, has very interesting uses of technology. And if they're regulating it, we need to also think about that. The other piece is big for me is the data piece. So my background's in data. So data governance is so huge for me. And I think even some bare minimum, not even restrictions, but guidelines on the right types of data that we should be incorporating into these models and how these models should be trained and what that looks like the existence of copyrights on different data that's coming into the system, the existence of privacy. Like Zoom now has a setup where I think we're actually training its model if we select into the terms and conditions. And many people don't know that. They may have pulled it out because a lot of people got mad about it, but there are certain things that are happening where you and I are sharing personal data all day long, and we don't even know it's being used to train these models. So we have to make sure that people's data is protected. That's voice data, that's visual data, that's data that any other input that you're putting into the system. We have to have bare minimum protections around those type of things. And I think some of the things that are happening in like Europe around like governing data has to happen here as a prerequisite to even getting to the point where we can do AI in a real meaningful way. So I'm of the camp of folks who are listening to this, please make sure you're talking to your local officials, your congressperson about how do we need to regulate this. And it can't just be something we just talked about when OpenAI came out and everyone got scared. It's already happening. They're using it in healthcare, they're using it in criminal justice, they're using so many different fields that affect government. I'm not just talking about areas for private sector, like literally in fields of government, we use predictive analytics to decide if we're going to take a child out of a home, to decide if someone's going to go to prison. Like this has been being used for decades now, and people don't even realize that, but that's a type of machine learning that is happening based on data that can be bad data that has the wrong information. So if we're making these big decisions about people's lives, we have to have regulations in place, and we have to have data governance and AI governance that allows for us to do amazing work.
And I guess touching on data governance in itself, it's like even in my science fair project, which last year it was like detecting pulmonary hypertension with like a heart
Oh,
condition
wow.
with
I love it.
electrocardiograms. And then recently I actually did another thing where I just went through a bunch of cardiac conditions in a public data
Mm-hmm.
set, and I classified all of them. And then the
Nice.
thing is like there's the problem is the data is not always high quality, doesn't always match up. There's a lot of discrepancies. And that's like one of the biggest things because, yeah, when I'm using it, it's completely all right because the only person that knows this is the judge that listens to my science fair. But
Right.
I'm going to take it to like a level of, I guess, applying it in the real world. I
Mm-hmm.
think there definitely needs to be like a huge extent of regulation. I think, in fact, one of the best things, like, I guess, stressing the importance is like the AI Bill of Rights, which I think was actually a
Yes.
little while ago, might have been in
Mm-hmm.
like December or October, I think, of
Mm-hmm.
2022, around that time.
Oh yeah, things like that are important to guide this conversation, and even more folks are coming out with different types of guidelines around it and asking folks to sign off on it. I need to check back in to see where some of those are, but we have to regulate AI. I'm a person who's all about innovation. This technology in the wrong hands with the wrong governance can impact our lives in a way that we may not understand today. So we do need to do the bare minimum to make sure we have some guardrails and guidelines to protect people who are using it, as well as people who aren't using it.
And I guess with that being said, I want to move into today's final portion of the interview, which is
Mhm.
just career advice, because obviously you've been in this industry for quite a little while now. And I'm thinking that you've had numerous experiences that you've probably reflected on and have been like, oh, maybe this was an amazing thing. Maybe this was not so worth my time. So I guess
Mhm.
I want to touch a bit on that. What do you think was most helpful in advancing your career, especially in recent times?
Trusting myself and my gut. So early on, I started off like in logistics management, which is something totally different than what I was doing today. But I knew then I like data and I like to use data to make decisions. So because of that, one day I woke up and was like, I don't like just making a company money. I want to actually help people's lives. And then I began to go on that path of like, how can I help people's lives improve by using what I'm good at, which is like data performance management to improve lives and to track metrics and to make sure we're using that data to make good decisions. And then I basically went on a path to find that. And how I got there was literally connecting with the right people. So I know folks always say it's not what you know, but who you know. It's a good combination of both. And I really believe the people I connected with across my path, I would never be where I am today if I had not opened my mouth, spoke to people, been a good human, having conversations with people, telling them about what I liked and what I wanted to do that helped me get to where I am. And they help open doors along the whole path. So one thing I will always tell folks who are trying to figure out career, one, if you're a young person, you will not know what you want to do. If you know, it still will change and it may get down into a niche. So keep going, keep trying. But if you realize you don't like it, change it. Like that's totally fine. I don't care how old you get. I think I changed careers at 28 when I changed careers. And that was later on compared to most folks, right? So I wanted to make sure that I did what felt genuine to me. And I did that. And I have had payoffs both personally, professionally, and in so many ways I can't even count. So please trust yourself, find good people to collaborate with, always keep meeting people, even how you just reached out to me. That is going to take you a long way. I'm telling you right now, you already have something in you that's going to literally change your life and continue to push you forward in your direction you're going.
I definitely think, I guess, like expanding my network and connections is something that has been like instrumental because I got to meet like so many wonderful people through interviews, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I made a few friends too in the process, so it's been
Yep.
like around the country. So it's been an amazing experience, I guess. And I guess looking back to the career thing, changing careers, I can relate to that because I actually have a parent who switched careers. I think it was pretty late too. It was around 28, 30. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
definitely a similar situation. And I guess with that being said, I want to ask today's, I guess, last question. And this is for all the high school teens and
Mm-hmm.
teens in general, even middle schoolers, I guess, watching this. If you think there's one thing that they should take away from this, that's perhaps the most monumental thing, what do you think that would like be like? What's the best piece of advice that you can give them that you wish, I guess, someone gave you back when you were in high school?
I will say this. I think that the way the current education system and even professional careers, the way it's built now is it wants you to be good at one thing. And it wants you to focus on that one thing and forget about all the huge, beautiful person you are and all the things you come with. Don't forget all the things you are. And the way I tell folks who are middle school and high school to think about it is to find their intersection. So for me, my intersection, things I love are data, technology, public policy, and law. Those are the things I love to read about, love to talk about, I love to explore more. So instead of just originally people were trying to push me down one lane. And I remember a gentleman saying, if you're in the intersection of data, law, and policy, you're going to win. And I'm like, that's where I am. And no one had ever said that to me. So find the thing that you like and don't forget your creative side. Even for you scientists out there, a lot of times scientists are told, they're not artists or whatever. That's too fluffy, or liberal arts is too fluffy. If you combine the two, you are unstoppable. And I really mean that. If we talk about however you feel about Elon Musk or not, or your Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs, you can hate them as human beings or whatever it is. They are both smart as heck and they're innovators and creative. You cannot just be a person who sticks in this one lane. You have to also use the other side of your brain. We have two sides for a reason. Use your left and right brain for the different things. And I want folks to really dig into that. Do not think because you're a scientist, you can't play an instrument or you can't draw a picture or you can't do that. Coders or people are the most creative people, but they're told they're only this one thing. Or if you are an artist, you can also mix math into your art. You can also think about that. I actually did a session with some high schoolers. I think it was high school or middle school. I can't remember. I think I've done both. But in this conversation, it was middle school. And the conversation was literally like, what area will AI not touch or will technology not touch in the future? And I had them name careers where AI could not touch or where technology did not touch. So they named sports. I'm like, that is the worst one to
Art.
name.
Yeah, it's not.
It's sports, it's everywhere. It's in AI, is all over sports. Machine learning is all over sports. How they literally understand how a person moves is data. How they literally make decisions. Like anyone who's ever like watched Moneyball, you can see how that work, where you can use data to make things great. Cooking, they said. I'm like, no, people are using technology and AI in cooking as it relates to recipes, as it relates to thinking about personalizing an experience for their person. Think about all the, if you get meal prep or meal planning, they're using technology to literally give you the meal that's perfect for you and what's happening here. Art, there are people already integrating technology in art. Think about NFTs and all these other things that are happening. So there's no, I cannot find a field, and no one has shown me yet, where you do not have technology, science, math in some way that interacts. So please find your intersection. There's riches and niches, as they say, because when you niche down, you're able to get to the point where you are an expert in something and people will come to you and they'll pay you for it. And the reality is we do it for passion and pay. So I just want to leave folks with that.
And that's all for today. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. And if folks ever want to reach out, feel free to contact me via LinkedIn or any other place.
And I'll link that below in the description of the video. And I guess with that being said, for anyone watching this, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That would really support the podcast going on into the future.